Yo, and welcome back to the Always Better Than Yesterday interview sessions with me, Ryan Hartley. And today I'm joined by my very special guest, Derrick Furlow Jr. Welcome, Derrick. How are you, my friend?
I am wonderful in the midst of the chaos, Ryan. So definitely thank you for having me on, man. And I'm definitely honored for the opportunity to join you and be a part of the Always Better Than Yesterday movement, baby.
Love that. Love that. It's great to have you. Please do me the honor of introducing your good self, sharing a little bit about your story and what you do now.
Man, that's going to be an earful. So I hope y'all ready.
I'm ready. Let's go.
But once again, I'm Derrick Furlow Jr., born and raised in Southwest Atlanta, Georgia, over here in the States. Raised by a single mom with 3 kids. And in the process of growing up, we didn't have much. We stayed in the inner city and the government housing, and we didn't have a lot. So in the midst of my mom doing the best to give us the best life and the best opportunity to grow up safely, we did a lot of moving. So I moved around a lot as a kid, and I became real good at making friends because I realized if I didn't meet you by the time school started, I probably wasn't going to see you again by the time school ended. Ended up going to 3 to 4 different elementary schools by the time I got to 5th grade, and we finally moved out of the inner city of Atlanta down to Griffin, Georgia. And at that point, my mom met what's today her husband, and I was finally afforded the opportunity to play organized sports because prior to that, we couldn't afford it. And I played in the street. So finally, when I was able to start playing organized sports, I realized that sports could be a vehicle for me because in the environment I was in, I seen a lot of guys selling drugs or rapping, and a lot of it had to do with them going to jail or being around police. And that always made me nervous. It always made me scared, and always made me uncertain of what my future would hold. Mm-hmm. So after getting introduced to organized sports, I finally make it to high school, and I finally played football, basketball, and track all in one season. And they started telling me that I'm pretty good. And at that point, I wasn't sure which one I was good at. But I finally started to come into this confidence and develop a name for myself. And sure enough, my stepdad got a promotion and a raise. So life is getting better. But they didn't tell me that the raise came with a move. And he ended up moving. We ended up moving to a place called Crossett, Arkansas. Now, I'm not sure about you, Ryan, if you know where Arkansas is on the map. But I'm from the States, and I didn't know what Arkansas was. So when I got there, it was not a place for me. So at that point, sports became serious. And I said, okay, I didn't like my life. I wasn't happy with it, but I had to start taking responsibility and accountability for my own happiness because I realized my mom was doing the best she had with what she got, where she was at. So if I wanted anything more than what we had, I had to do something about it. So that's when I came up with my first plan of my life, and I called it the Get Out of Arkansas plan. And that was going to get me a full ride scholarship back to the University of Georgia. And I went to work, and it was pretty much going to be in sports. Which one was it going to be? I'm not sure. So I played basketball, and then I went home over the Christmas break, came back, and I missed some games, some practices. And coach said, hey, you got to run 500 bleachers before you can play basketball on this team again. And I told coach I didn't like basketball that much. So basketball went out the window. So they left track. Track came around. I ran track, and quite frankly, it felt like punishment. So that went track. And that left me with football. Football at the time, I didn't play as much as I wanted to, but I seen a guy that had already committed to the University of Arkansas, and I seen his numbers and his stats, and I said, you know what, I can do that. So once I made my game plan of my Get Out of Arkansas plan, I made the stats better than his stats because I realized if my stats were better than his stats, by default, I got to get me a full ride scholarship. So the idea was to rush for 2,200 yards, 20 touchdowns, take the school and the city to the first state championship. If I win the state championship, we're going to get enough attention, enough recognition. I'll get me some full ride scholarship opportunities, and I can go back to Georgia. Well, my junior year comes, and I get to work, and sure enough, we end up rattling off the first win, the second win, the third win, the fourth win. We look up, first time in school history, we're 8-0. We finished the season 10-0, first time in school history. Next thing you know, we got 3 rounds in the playoffs before we get to the state championship game. The first game we win, the second game we win, and that third game, it was a close game. And we ended up blowing it at the end because it was wet the whole time and we couldn't keep ourselves up. So that team ended up beating us 21-7, and I don't complete the Get Out of Arkansas plan. I'm mad, I'm upset, I'm frustrated. And sure enough, I didn't realize that the plan still worked. I started getting letters. I started getting attention. So the idea of me getting out of Arkansas became a real thing. So that summer I went to work, going to camps, going to schools, making sure I was the biggest, strongest, fastest person I could ever become. I came down to playing football. And sure enough, I went to my last camp right before the season started, which was the University of Arkansas. Even though I wasn't going to that school anyway, I still went to that camp. And I ended up coming back from that camp, and I had hurt my knee a little bit. Didn't think much of it. My season is a couple weeks around the corner for the start. And the coach said, hey, you might want to get your knee checked out because it was swelling up on me. I ended up getting it checked out. Come to find out, I had tore my meniscus, which you get a scope on it, that'll put you out about 3 weeks. Well, I ended up getting that surgery, but when I woke up getting rolled out of the operating room, I didn't have a meniscus surgery. I ended up having an ACL surgery. I went in for a surgery and came out with one I wasn't supposed to have, and that took away the life that I knew it because it made me obsolete on the football landscape. So my football stage platform was just stripped away from me. All those scholarships that I had and opportunities I had completely went to zero. So at this point, I'm left stuck, wondering what's next for my life. How am I going to get out of here? And I didn't know what was next for me, but I knew I just had to continue to work. And by grace, I ended up getting this letter in the mail months after the football season, after we ended up going 5-5 and not making the playoffs. And it was from the University of Tennessee, and they invited me to come up and check out the spring game. And I come up there, which was my only option I had. They didn't know it. And I had a chance to meet the coaches, and they said, hey, we know you're a heck of a player. We actually saw you here because you were playing on film against 2 guys that were coming here. So you never know who's watching. And right now, we know that what you're capable of, but right now we can't give you a full ride scholarship because we're not sure how your knee's going to respond. But if you come back and you play to the level that you're capable of playing on, we got a full ride scholarship waiting on you. And man, I was betting on myself, Ryan. That's the only option I had. So I took it. And sure enough, the grind paid off. 2 years later, I was able to get that full ride scholarship, graduated in 3 years, got my master's in 4 years. And from that point moving forward, I was able to transition not to the NFL because I hurt my shoulder my senior year, but I was able to go play arena ball professionally for 2 years. And after that, I transitioned into my life after sports and realized that there was a lot of intangible transferable skills that the game had taught me that I can go take and use to be successful. And there were a lot of guys and athletes across the world that came before me and that's going to come after me that wasn't use those intangible transferable skills. So I took that knowledge that I had, was in the sales industry, and used that to make me thrive in the sales industry. And then I walked away from the sales industry when I wrote my book, What's Next? How to Transition Like a Champion. And that was designed to teach all those athletes that came before me and after me how to take those intangible transferable skills that you give the game and how you make those skills relevant in your life and in your business. Because I'm a firm believer that everything you give the game gives back to you. I'm a firm believer that the grind always pays off. It's just in the type of currency. So athletes think that the grind have to pay off what you're going professional or what you're making all this money, but it could pay off in you having good people skills, having good relationships, you getting a college education. It could pay off multiple different ways. So I discovered my currency, and I wanted to create these programs that was going to allow athletes to transition into their life after sports, but also help people, everyday people that's transitioning from one phase of their life to the next as a champion. So that's how the programs I created, book, curriculum, ebooks, and went on to speak and share this message of how to take those skills that we learn, whether it's in life or in business, and how you can correlate them to the next phase of your life and carry them over so you can have successful transition. So that's what I do and who I am in a nutshell, Ryan, here on the mission to impact, inspire, and empower people.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I just love to dive into the story of, your growth and your journey leading up to the scholarship. What kept you showing up?
I knew I belonged there. And what kept me showing up, it was a chip on my shoulder. Like, I put in all this work early on in my life. I had been through so much adversity early in my life. When I came out of the operating room and I got to the house and I was doing rehab, they had me doing 1 rehab a day. And I told them I need to do 3 rehabs a day because I had this idea that I could come back from it. I remember sitting on my bed crying, asking myself, why me? And I asked that question enough. And you got to be careful when you ask that question because sometimes you'll get an answer that you don't want to hear. Mm-hmm. And I just remember the Lord saying to me, I gave you that football stage for the glorification of my kingdom, and you use that stage for your own purpose, selfish ambitions, reasons, and goals. So I had to take that stage away from me to get your attention. And once I started to think about why me, it was really like he had equipped me. He had prepared me for it. Like I was built to handle that. Like, why not me? So once I got to the University of Tennessee, I knew I had worked the hardest. I knew I could outwork the guys that was already there. I knew that it was no quitting me. I knew that the stuff that I went through growing up, being raised by a single mom, trying to figure out what we're gonna pay the light bill or what we're gonna eat. Like I knew that toughness was already instilled. So only way this was not gonna work out is if I quit. And I wasn't gonna quit. So like I said, the grind always pays off. I stood in there summer after summer until the point I made it where they couldn't deny me. And once I made it where they couldn't deny me, and I started to look at this thing from a bigger perspective, the bigger picture behind it, and not focusing on my own personal selfish ambitions, reasons, and goals, which I was doing at the first point. That's why I got delayed. That's why it took so long. It worked out in my favor. So I believe I didn't have a choice. I had to remove the excuses for myself, but I also had to remove those excuses for anybody that was gonna come behind me that was gonna go through some adversity. I didn't want them to have no excuses for, oh, Derrick, he had it easy. Oh, Derrick, he had this route. Oh, Derrick, he went to the University of Tennessee. No, bro, this thing didn't go how it didn't go how I thought it was gonna go, but it still worked out. And the reason why it worked out because I refused to quit, and I put in the work, and I didn't let the adversity shake me, because I believe a lot of things are either something's happening to you. You just came out of something happening to you, or something's on its way. So we always in that stage. Either something just happened to you, something about to happen to you, or something's on the way. So it never ends. So that was just the thought process, the mindset. So it really was make it happen or die. Like it was no other option.
I love that. On your Instagram bio, it says you're an authorized dealer of hope. What does that mean?
Man, I found my purpose. My purpose is to impact your perspective, inspire you to be great, and empower you with the tools of knowledge for what it takes. So when it came down to giving hope, everything we do, I believe we impact people directly or indirectly. So I'm just became more conscious and more cognizant to be intentional about those things I do. And I realized my story, my journey gave another cat hope that he can be more, do more, have more. He can make it from the inner city of Atlanta to the University of Tennessee, that he can make it from nobody in his family going to college to go get this master's. Like, I believe my actions are, since I'm aware that we either are impacting people directly or indirectly, everything I do, I want to be able to give hope. So whether I'm talking it, whether I'm walking it, I want to be an example, because I believe people don't need opinions, they need more examples. So the authorized dealer of hope, I want to be that hope. When they see this guy, they can be like, oh man, he made it in corporate America with dreads hanging down his back. Oh, he made it from sports as an entrepreneur. Like, I want to be that. I want them to say, oh, if he can do it, I can do it.
You used the word transition, and I know you're very much into transition mastery. When did you start to realize for yourself that you were able to transition and take those transferable skills?
Ryan, that's one of the best questions I've never been asked, because I love it. And this is the kicker. When I was little, all the moving we did, like, I wasn't cool growing up, right? Like, at first I wasn't cool, but over a period of time I got cool. And this was happening. Every time we move, Ryan, I go from one school to another, or one grade to another. And at the grade prior to that, I wasn't that cool. But what I realized was that next year I could reinvent myself and make myself that person I wanted to be, to be a little cooler of a person. So I became cognizant of the art of reinvention and transitioning to making myself better every single year at an early age. But when it really hit was my freshman year of high school, when we had to move to Arkansas. I didn't want to move. I wanted to go stay with my biological dad and my stepmom. And I'm over there, and of course they're telling me no, because they got their own family. And she said something. In the process, I didn't hear. I wasn't trying to hear. I didn't care to hear. And she said, no, you should move, and this is going to give you an opportunity to reinvent yourself. So I wasn't trying to hear that, because that's just an excuse for me not to come stay in Atlanta and have to move to Arkansas. But after we got there, in Georgia, I wasn't the biggest, the strongest, the fastest. I wasn't the best athlete. It was a lot of athletes that were better than me. But when I got to Arkansas, I said, you know what? I'm going to be the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, the best athlete. And sure enough, I put in the work, and they perceived what I gave off. So I became the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, the best athlete. So after I started to pay attention, they got what I gave them. Like, people only see what you give them. Kind of like if you look at social media. People only see what everybody else on the outside see what people show. So when I started coming down to this transition, if I want to be a better person, a better athlete, let me do the work and let them see it. And all of a sudden, this art of reinvention became a thing. So that transitioning, I started to master it because I realized we can go from one stage of our life just mundane and mediocre and be the same person, or we can grow from one stage of our life and be better, stronger, faster, swifter, wiser. So that happened at an early age, and I just happened to tune into it, and I was aware of it. And now I implement it in everything I do.
I've seen you've worked with Olympians, you've worked with the NBA stars. What does it mean or how do you help people with transition mastery?
I mean, I feel like that's my purpose. So when I do it, I feel good because I understand if they can transition like a champion and they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster mentally, the people that's looking up to them gonna get a chance to get bigger, stronger, faster mentally. It's gonna rub off. They're gonna impact somebody directly or indirectly. So the work I'm doing, I feel like I'm finally doing something that's bigger than me. And it's not for my own selfish ambitions, reasons, and goals, which was my problem the first time. The first time I missed the message. In the middle of my mess, I missed the message because I was focused on me. Now, I'm not focused on me because this thing is bigger than me. And sports showed me that it was bigger than me. However, I missed the message until my red shirt sophomore year. And that's when I finally got my scholarship, when I stopped thinking about me, myself, and I. So when I help people transition, I believe that I get a chance to help them and they're going to indirectly impact somebody, directly or indirectly. And now it's going to have a ripple effect. So it's empowering.
Talk to me about your book.
Hey, the book was one of the hardest things I ever did because I was terrible at English. My Spanish grade was higher than my English grade, but I just had these thoughts going through my head that I had to get out. And when I got to 45,000 words, I went and found the heck of an editor and was able to get it out. But the book just gives people the blueprint. It tells my story in depth, in details, with the blueprint so they can go out here and structure their transition, whether it's in life after sports, whether it's transitioning into entrepreneurship, whether it's transitioning after the coronavirus, whether it's transitioning into being a single mom or a single dad, whether it's transitioning into coming out of prison, whether it's transitioning into coming out of the Army or the Navy. The principles don't change. And the book is designed to be a blueprint to help somebody else make that transition. So the book is there, and I'm grateful for it because I believe it's going to leave some wisdom and some knowledge long after I'm gone. It can be a tool that can help catapult people to their greatness.
Do you think about legacy much?
Man, it's all about legacy. It's all about legacy. When you take a look at the foundation of sports, a good friend of mine, Inky, used to say this, and it registered me while we was in college, but that we honor those that came before us, that laid the foundation and the blueprint for the team and what this thing stands for. But where we are, when we done playing that game or whatever stage we're at, the legacy is going to be those guys that's coming behind us. So as personally, I think that's what our last name stands for. Our last name is going to outlive our first name. So the things I try to cooperate or incorporate or whatever I do, I don't do it for my first name anymore. That was my problem in high school. That's why he took the football stage away from me, because I was doing it for Derrick. I wasn't doing it for Furlow. So now all the programs I'm creating or any podcast I get on or anything I do, if I drop enough wisdom, it's going to honor the legacy of Furlow that's going to outlive me. So when my wife have my name or as my kids, when I have kids, they have my name one day, they're going to say, hey, that Furlow guy, that Furlow family, they stand for something versus it being Derrick because Derrick is no longer here. So I believe our last name is going to outlive our first name. And I put it like that on my logo. That's why the last name is more bolder than the first name. So legacy is all about it.
I love that perspective. I love that. What has been the most difficult transition for you to make?
Oh man, hands down, the most difficult transitions was transitioning into my life after sports, but it happened in two different phases. The identity crisis, the athletes transition. Actually, it's not just athletes. I'm speaking on athletes because I was there, done that. But a lot of people, if you've been in a career for 5, 10, 15, 20 years so long, when you transition to the next phase of your life, you're going to have an identity crisis. So that's how you see yourself as. You don't know who you are outside of it. But that identity struggle, my senior year of high school, being irrelevant in sports and not, for the first time, not being an athlete when it was relevant to me, and not being in the paper and not being talked about. Like, I was opposite. I had no purpose, no mission, no substance. Like, that was a tough transition. Luckily enough, it happened my senior year, and I had already made up my mind, and I had these goals that I was going to reach anyway. So I kept going, because some people wasn't already positioned to be relentless and pursue those dreams, those goals. So they stop when they get injured. So I'm just stubborn enough that I kept going, and crazy enough that I kept going. So I had a chance to rebound from that. So when I got to college, after I had the proper perspective, when I transitioned into my life after sports for real, then it was just a matter of making those real life adjustments and applying those intangible transferable skills to the game that taught me, and realizing, okay, how do they correlate? So once I started figuring out how those lessons were relevant into being an entrepreneur, or being in sales, or for having a job, or for working with an employee, or for having a boss, or for working with a team, when I started to correlate, okay, all this stuff I've already done playing sports, I just got to alter it or make those adjustments over here. Once I figured that out, it became easy. But on the front end of figuring it out and thinking about it and realizing this is something different, and realizing that, okay, I'm going to suck at this for a while until I figure it out, just like I sucked at sports for a while until I figured it out. Like, that was the toughest part, because I had done it so long and it became easy. It was second nature. I can do it unconsciously, and I didn't have a lot of energy into it. So I call it the ultimate transition from an athletic perspective. It's when you transition to your life after sports, because your athletic identity dies. And if it doesn't die, then you hoop dream, was what we like to call it, for the rest of your life, thinking that you're going to get this phone call that's never going to happen, or you think you can still go out here and play against these young guys that are way stronger than you and faster than you, because you got this ego of what you used to could do in high school, or what you used to do in college. So that's what we like to call it. But that was definitely the ultimate transition for me. And honestly, it exhausted me mentally and physically. So now I believe everything else I do in life probably will never exhaust me to that degree, as far as physicality. Mentally, I feel like I'm mentally tough. So now I think I'm built to do anything, which you hear that all the time when you're little. You can do anything when you grow up, or you can be anything you want to be. I didn't believe it at first. But now, after transitioning into life after sports and not dying and realizing, oh yeah, life does go wrong and I can't thrive in something else, I believe I can transition and do anything. And I believe it's actually truly empowering.
I love that. I come from a policing background, and you'd always see that when they'd done their 30-year policing career, and if they'd joined at the age of 20, they're looking at retiring at 50, and, you know, young of mind still, and still probably want to work after, and they get to that, who am I beyond the uniform? Who am I? You know, and I see that, and I saw that in my dad as well when he left the prison service after doing a similar stretch of time. He's too young to be able to retire, like, permanently, because he wants to keep active. But again, it's, what can I do? And I remember having this conversation with him thinking, look at it, look at all these transferable skills you've got. And sometimes they're just blinded to it because all they see is the identity of the role that they've taken. So yeah, I can completely relate to what you've just said there. My ethos is about helping people be better than yesterday. I'm just really curious to know what that phrase, always better than yesterday, means to you.
Man, always better than yesterday. That's the person who, so it's funny. We got this saying, me, my brother, my good friend, he's a D-line coach at Georgia. And we got this term, it's called 89ers. And we came up with this in high school once we moved to Arkansas. And 89er is, and it's relevant to what that phrase stands for me, is someone who's on a relentless pursuit of continual improvement. And 8 to 9 times out of 10, when you see them, they're grinding, they're working, they're striving, they're pushing. So when you say always better than yesterday, first thing that comes to mind is an 89er. Like, that's what an 89er is, relentless pursuit of continual improvement every single day.
Yeah, love that. Great answer. You said earlier about furlough standing for something. What are the core values of a furlough?
So the core values of a furlough, I think they're still being created. However, I do believe that integrity and character, I believe you got to stand for something. And those on the front end, you got integrity, you got character, you got love. I still think there's still more to come as this journey continues. But on the front end right now, I know I can speak on those, because that's what I believe in, standing for something, and I believe in doing the right thing. And I believe it's all about love. So it's easier said than done in the world. So I believe if you make that example and you live that example, at some point it'll rub off on people. But I believe we got some more core values to still add. But as of right now, where we at, definitely integrity and character and love. Those are the ones that I can initially say those have been probably the foundation or the first of many.
I love that. You said I asked you a great question earlier, but I'm just curious to know, what haven't I asked you, and what did you want to share with my audience?
Well, I mean, you haven't asked a lot of things, but you have asked a lot of things. So I guess it depends. The question would be, what do you feel your audience would benefit from the most? We over here, quarantine, Corona, I speak on transition, so we can give them the transition formula, or we could talk about, okay, if there was some transition mistakes that people make, or the habits of people of how to successful transitions, what are those things? So I guess the question would be, what is the most value we can add to your people while they're spending this time with Ryan and Derrick right now? What's the most value we can give them?
There'll be people out there right now that are going from the way things were to the way that they're going to be going forward, whether that be life's going to be different in their own business, entrepreneurship, in their current job, or maybe they've been made redundant and they're looking for another one. So let's take that fundamental, things are never going to be the same again. How can they move forward with intent, purpose, and confidence?
So the first thing they can do without a shadow of a doubt is apply the transition formula. And this formula I used during that ultimate transition. And the kicker was, I used it and I put a strategy and a blueprint behind it, but I had seen it being used everywhere, but people didn't know they were using it or how to actually go about using it. There was no formula behind it. So the formula is T plus C plus C equals ST. The T stands for takeaway. So when you think about the takeaway, everything that's happening in your life, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, what can you take away from it? When you realize what can you take away from it, what are those things that add value to you? What are those lessons you learn? Once you realize what you can take away from, the C is to correlate. How can you correlate it to where you're at right now or where you're going to be going? So with these changes, with these adjustments, how can you take away some of those, that knowledge, that wisdom, that value you had from the last normal, and how do they correlate to this new normal? Once you realize how they correlate, the next thing you got to do is realize, how do you carry them over? And once you realize how you can take those values, those lessons, that wisdom correlated to where you're at right now and where you're looking to go, and you realize how you can carry it over. If you can carry it over efficiently and effectively, you can have what we call a successful transition. So I was able to take those same takeaways I learned in sports and apply them in sales, because I got into sales, and after 3 months of using my people skills I developed at a young age, the people skills didn't get me far enough anymore. So I had to learn new skills. So what I had to ask myself is, what made me elite in sports? And what I concluded was, in sports, I became really good at learning and studying film and our opponent. So I said, okay, this is my takeaway. I can take away how I learned and studied the game and how I prepared, my ability to prepare. So how does that correlate in sales? All right, so with film study, we would get a scouting report of the team. And once we get the scouting report, we will watch film on that team to see the personnel, the alignments, the formations. And then once we got that scouting report and we watched film, we would go walk through. And we would go do a walkthrough to understand the schemes and strategies that they were looking to do and that we were going to implement that week. And after we did the walkthrough, we would go to practice. And we would practice implementing the schemes, the strategy, the personnel, the alignments, the assignments. But while we was practicing, Ryan, it would be getting recorded. So while I was getting recorded, I could go back after practice, review the tape, and look at the alignments, the assignments, the schemes, the strategies, the techniques. Did I do it right? Did I do it wrong? I can make those course corrections, those adjustments, and then I can go execute it the next day at practice better and better and better. So when the game came, I could execute at a high level and not make any mistakes. So when I got into sales, I said, okay, that's how we learn football. That's how we learn our opponent. So I got into sales, right? I had to learn the company credibility. I had to learn the steps of the sale and the sales process. So I said, okay, I can take those sales process, company credibility, steps of the sale, and I can learn those by doing a role play with one of the other sales reps. So now I'm role playing. I'm understanding the thought process, the philosophy, the strategy, the information behind the company credibility, the steps to the sales and the sales process. So after I role played it, Ryan, we start to practice. I practiced with my sales reps. So when I was practicing my closes. I was handling my objections. I was practicing my timing on my demeanor, my body language. I was practicing all these things, and then I would record it. So once I recorded it, I can go back and review the tape and say, okay, did I respond properly? How was my body language? How was my posture? How did they respond? How was my close? Was my timing right? Was my voice inflection right? How was my facial expression? And then after I review the tape, I can make those course adjustments over and over and over again. So by the time a customer sat down with me, I didn't mess up on the sale, and I can execute the sale. And I was able to scale and go from making 12 grand to over 6 figures to helping my whole team of young guys. One of them played basketball, one of them played golf, and the other never played sports. And we would be one of the top groups in the company. And then I would be able to become one of the top reps presenting for the whole company. So I was able to take away the stuff I had learned from sports, film study, correlated how it was relevant in sales, and then carried over into sales. And I had been a successful transition to my sales career. So if they can take the same transition formula through the midst of the coronavirus, or through the midst of the economic changes, or through the midst of being divorced or being married, or whatever the changes may be, take that formula, the T plus the C plus the C equal a successful transition, and go apply it to your life and your business. And I believe it'll help everybody transition like a champion.
Love that. Where can people come and connect with you? Where can they find you and your content?
They can find me on all social media platforms at Derrick, D-E-R-R-I-C-K, Furlow, F-U-R-L-O-W Jr. So that's on LinkedIn, that's on Twitter, that's on YouTube, that's on Instagram. And they can also go to the DerrickFurlow.com website, get the books, or go on their phone because it's already on ebooks, iBooks, audiobooks, you name it there. Or they can go to Amazon. Amazon's all over the place. So I'm available online, the same handle. And there's plenty of free content that just help you through your day. Because I believe you either in a transition, just came out of a transition, or a transition is on its way. So why not get yourself prepared and equipped for the storm? So when it happens, you're not shocked by it and you're ready for it because your mind is right. So that's what they can do. And I just want to give them that value so they can transition like a champion too.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time and your energy and your stories and your content. I would love it if you leave us with a final thought from your good self.
Final thought. It's a couple of them, but we'll go with this one right here. 2020 will either be your crutch or your catapult. You decide.
Nice. Love that. Thank you so much for your time, my friend. Much love.
Thank you, Ryan.